G'day everyone, and welcome to this GlideFast and Perspectium webinar. The title of today's session is Social but Distant. And we're going to spend the next hour in a conversation with two of the best known CEOs in the ServiceNow world. We're going to be talking about what they're seeing in the market, what trends are emerging, the impact of COVID-19, upgrading to Orlando, asset management, integrations, migrations, and new approaches to siloed application data and processes. You're going to get to meet David and Michael in just a moment. But before we kick things off, I've just got a couple of quick housekeeping items to run through. Firstly, we want you to be part of the conversation too. We welcome questions and comments during the session. So just if you have any question, anything you'd like to ask David and Michael, jump into the Q&A panel on your Zoom screen and we will get you a response, either as part of the broadcast today, or we'll get back to you afterwards to follow up. Also, you should be aware that today's presentation is being recorded. So if you want to go back and revisit some of it later, or you want to share it with some of your colleagues afterwards, you will definitely be able to do so. And we will send out the link to everyone who registered in just a couple of days. So let's meet the stars of the show. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Michael Lombardo. Mike is the founder and CEO of GlideFast Consulting, also spent time at Barricode and Acorio in the past. Mike, thanks for joining us. For those that haven't met you before, can you tell us a little bit about GlideFast?
Absolutely. GlideFast, we're an elite ServiceNow partner. We're 100% focused on the platform. In my background, I was a ServiceNow customer pre-Aspen, by the way. So I've been in the game a long time. Not quite as long as David, but so I really, I've gone through a lot of the wins and losses of being a ServiceNow customer, right? Some of the struggles as well. So really, before starting GlideFast, I really made it my mission to help customers have some of the same wins I had as a customer, but also spare them from some of the pain points that arise, like over customizing, things like that.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks, Mike. So let's switch now to meet our second CEO and my boss, David Loo. David's the founder and CEO of Perspectium, and prior to that was the founding developer of ServiceNow. David, thank you for joining us too. What should the audience know about Perspectium?
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here with you, sharing some stories. Perspectium is a software company. We develop software and cloud services that extends your investment in ServiceNow in the areas of big data and automation.
Excellent. And we're going to hear a lot more from David and Michael. But before I pass the baton entirely over to them, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Craig McDonough. I'll be your host for today's webinar. I look after marketing and strategy for Perspectium, but I've also been working in the ServiceNow world for some time alongside many of my Perspectium and GlideFast colleagues. But enough about me. Let's get to the topic at hand, and let's start with a little bit of background on GlideFast and Perspectium. And let's talk about how we got here in the first place. David, maybe you can kick us off. Can you tell us a little bit about your history and experience with ServiceNow?
Sure. As most of you would know by now, I was a founding developer. I was there in ServiceNow since day one with Fred Luddy. I followed him into this new company and started creating a platform for applications on the web. It's funny because a lot of people always ask me, when did you leave and how did you leave? The fact is I never really did. We are still creating value for the ServiceNow community. And it is, when you have an experience like creating a company like ServiceNow, it's a life-changing event. It stays with you and stays with you for life and opens a lot of doors for you. Doors in terms of creativity, being able to help customers, being able to think about the problems that customers have. and how to go about creating more value for what you started. Here's some funny pictures that Craig just put on the screen. To the right there is actually our first user conference. It was at the Pink Elephant Show in Orlando, 2005. And at that time, I just joined Fred, and we were the only 2 employees of the company at that time. And what you see in the computer screen there is actually the first version of the dashboard in ServiceNow that I created while sitting waiting for jury duty, waiting to be called. So I did that in about 4 hours, and I uploaded it and go, Fred, it's done. He goes, okay, let's show it at the show. So those were the days. To the top left corner, that is a picture of me and Fred making fun, of course. That's 2006 or 2007 in the second office that we were in, called the Schoolhouse. So we've named every place that we've been very dearly, for like 3 or 4 times until they became big gray buildings, and we don't have any names for those. But the second building that we were in is called the Schoolhouse, and we had about 50 employees there. And that really changed the company because we realized that we were really working on something that was bigger than any of us. All right, it was a big deal. It was something that could help a lot of customers in a very efficient way, in a very different way that everyone else was doing at that time. So, and then a series of fortunate events after that, that's how ServiceNow became what it is. And then I like to show that picture occasionally and say, guess who has the big hat? By the way, that small hat is not my hat, it's my daughter's hat. At that time, she was 1 year old. To the bottom left is my current company right now. I'm really proud to share the team with you. That is a rare picture where the entire company got together globally, right? We are a global organization. We have a big presence in the UK. And when they all flew in, we took them to the local pub and bought them some beers and took a really nice picture there.
Excellent. So when you created Perspectium, David, what was the big problem that you were wanting to solve there?
Yeah, so I was not only a developer and demo data in ServiceNow, I also was a very big customer facing part. So Fred would send me to a lot of important customers, and I would sit with them and figure out the hardest problems that they have and how to solve them. And it always comes back to how customers want to get more from the platform that they're investing in, right? In terms of data, process, and user experience. So because of that, after leaving ServiceNow, I had a lot of that experience that I took with me and wanted to continue to provide value in that space.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, and we're going to hear more about the value that you see as needed in that space in just a sec. But before we do, I'd like to give Mike a turn to introduce himself. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your history with ServiceNow and why you created GlideFast?
Absolutely, that was amazing, David. It's awesome to hear you speak and your story, and thanks again for doing this. Yeah, Michael Lombardo, CEO of GlideFast. I started my IT career off on the help desk, so I was really accustomed to solving problems really fast. I had a love for helping solve problems. I love solving problems. I loved I love solving problems as quickly as possible, getting as many calls closed per day. I hated escalating to tier 2, right? But I went from one help desk that was really organized. We actually had, this is before ServiceNow was around, we had Service Center from Peregrine, right? And we had KPIs, metrics. Then I went to another help desk that wasn't as organized, a little smaller organization, didn't have any real KPIs, goals, metrics. So I started to instill some of those before I even really knew what ITIL was, right? I just went from one place that was built on ITIL so I took some of those things over. Like one of the first things I noticed, they didn't have a knowledge base. We were all over the place, G drives, Outlook notes, all over the place. So I built a knowledge base just kind of from scratch, a WYSIWYG type of website builder though. I was never a coder like you, David, where I could build a website completely from scratch, all HTML. I wanted to do it faster, right? My ADD wouldn't allow me to sit there and code for forever, right? I wanted to build things in days and hours, not weeks or months. So then after I built the knowledge base, it was a huge success. The whole organization, IT wise, really made use of it and found the value in it. And then we went out and said, okay, it's time to invest in a real platform, right? Let's really get our organization up to the 21st century. Let's make the investment. Obviously, we chose ServiceNow. I led that implementation along with a partner. At the time, there was really only one partner available. I bet we could all guess which partner that was. I noticed right away just how busy they were. And I couldn't believe there was no other partners to choose from. ServiceNow said, here's your ServiceNow contract and here's the partner that's going to do it. And we were like, okay, there was no one else to choose from. So right away, I knew the demand was high. I knew the developers and consultants we were working with, they were busy, so I knew, and this was pre going public, pre-IPO for ServiceNow. But I knew there was something special about this, and I knew this was the right opportunity for me. And I just fell in love with the platform. I mean, this, again, like I was never somebody who could build something from scratch, but you give me a nice foundation, you give me tools to work with, and I'll utilize them, right? And I fell in love with the platform because I was using it to make my job easier. I was automating things, right? I mean, for forever we were screaming, hey, we need a better system. We need a better system. Finally, we got one. So I really, I shifted my problem solving skills from solving help desk and service desk requests over to automating and helping the help desk and the service desk help their customers, right? In infrastructure groups and different groups like that. So in a way, my whole career was kind of leading up to it. In the beginning, it was I was lost, right? It is a tough platform to learn. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't just go to a class and learn it. It takes trial and error, right? It takes dedication. I mean, I would work all day, come home, eat dinner, go back on the computer and just try to learn. And luckily, the community was so amazing, right? I'd go online and I'd find other people that love this platform just as much as I did. And we'd jump on, Hangouts all night building apps and just trying to figure this thing out, right? Back in 2010, 2011. Then I got into the consulting world where I got to, really amplify my ability to deliver those solutions, right? I wasn't just one organization now. I was doing this for multiple organizations. I knew it was a startup as well. So I could wear as many hats as I want. And going from the corporate world where there are a lot more rules and you kind of had to, everybody was on site and, to go to a startup where things were more relaxed, where, you needed results, right? I'm a very results-driven person. So I could help out with sales, recruiting, marketing, obviously delivery. I had very smart people around me to help sharpen my skills. Again, the passion of the whole community is just unbelievable. And then went out on my own, kind of went independent first for a while, and the demand just kept growing and growing. And me and my partners decided, let's start an entity and start bringing in some of the best talent in the space and really see how far we can take this thing.
So you've now grown GlideFast into an organization. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of GlideFast itself and the sort of the reason why GlideFast in particular came into being and where that name came from?
Yeah, I was curious how David felt about the name GlideFast when he first heard it. You know, obviously we all know ServiceNow. I think we all know ServiceNow used to be called GlideSoft before ServiceNow came about. So in the platform itself, a lot of the code and APIs are Glide record, right? A lot of Glide involved. So we really wanted to find a way to, you know, tip our hats to people like David Loo, Fred, the developer community. So we wanted to reference Glide, and we wanted to also portray that we do want to do things fast, right? This is rapid application deployment, right? So we found a nice little marriage of Glide and fast. My partners, we all think we came up with the name, and we all know I did, but we all think we came up with the name. And yeah, David, I'm really curious, you know, kind of what you thought when you first heard GlideFast.
Well, I'm even more curious about how you found out about that, because very soon after, I think it was year 2 or year 3, when we realized that we were less of at that time, we were less of a platform and technology company and more of an application and customer-centric company.
Yep.
We changed the name. And also there was a little tidbit fact here that when we you know, Googled GlideSoft at that time, there were other hits that were not very nice for ourselves. So we went from that, and we wanted to have an idea of, you know, it's actually a service and application company. So the name changed to be more appropriate at that time.
Yeah, and you know,
it was too late to change the class names of Glide.
Yeah, can't change the classes, right? You know, I don't really know exactly when I first heard about GlideSoft, but you know this community, how passionate people are and obsessed, right? You know, obsession comes to mind when I think of ServiceNow community, right? We love this platform. I mean, people, it's their hobby and their work, right? So yeah, I think you underestimate a little bit of the community and their ability to dig and find out. And now it's part of all of the ServiceNow trivia questions. You know, it's pretty well known, obviously, but yeah, we really did it as a salute and as a show of respect to you, Fred, all the originals, and the whole community, right?
Thank you.
So I guess from that conversation, we can assume that you've both got a pretty good understanding of the ServiceNow world, and that you've both, like, obviously you've both been working in this for a long time. Let's talk a little bit about some of the trends that you're seeing, and you know what you're seeing happening in the market. Mike, do you want to kick us off this time?
Sure.
What are the big things you're seeing?
I mean, obviously, you know, my world is services and you know, implementations, right? So, you know, with the rollout of CSM and the ability to really, CSM for me is more than just the technology aspect of it, right? And customer workflows. It's more than just the technology aspect. It's really allowed ServiceNow to say, listen, we're not just here to service your internal customers. We can service external customers as well, right? And I think it's the one major step that ServiceNow needed to really start to think about how can we support the business itself? How can we drive revenue for our customers? Not just you know, help with cost savings, automation, process efficiency. How can we, you know, how can you leverage ServiceNow to really support your true customers, not just your end users? So for me, that, you know, opened up the market so much, and we're seeing so many different use cases, not just, call center support, right? There's so much more than that. Things like self-registration, helping citizens of states, there's so much there. Obviously, that in HR is massive right now, right? We've seen dramatic improvements in that space on the platform itself, in the customer community embracing HR so much. So those are really my two favorite, growth areas for ServiceNow, and I'm looking forward to see really how far, especially CSM is going to be taken.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually just recently did a survey here at Perspectium of all of our customers and asked them how many were using applications like CSM and HR, and a surprisingly large number of them came back and said that they were. Yeah, I mean it was around, I think it was around 40% were using CSM and around 25% using HR. So yeah, a lot of ServiceNow customers going in that direction. Mike, I'm going to come back to you for another one in just a sec, but I'm going to flop over to David and ask him for his first emerging trend. What are you saying, David?
Sure, and to talk about emerging trend, it's meaningful for me to tell you about how Perspectium is actually meeting these emerging trends that we see in the ServiceNow community specifically. We have two types of customers, the IT professional and the IT service provider, who is a subset of the IT professional. In our IT professional customers, we see the trend of wanting to migrate the ServiceNow platform into a newer version, as well as going back into default application states. We see trends of wanting to get more value out of the ServiceNow data and process that has been living in their platform now for years, especially customers who have been a ServiceNow customer for n number of years. Things have built up. So these trends of wanting to have high availability of data and process is what we see. So we build a product for the IT professional that allows the exporting and importing of data as an application. So the application that we build is no code and low code, that allows an administrator to actually focus on the data engineering aspect of what is locked in their ServiceNow platform, right? To get more value from it by dynamically sharing data outside that can be used for governance, can be used for auditing, can be used for machine learning. Some of our customers use it for log tracing, as well as just wanting to archive it for an n number of years. Now, in terms of getting back into the box, that's, to us, is just an activity of exporting from one instance and importing into another in a very meaningful way, in a very well-defined, controlled, and highly available way. For our service provider customer, the trend that we see is more and more service providers are using the ServiceNow instance as a means of managing their customers. But it's not always true that a customer either wants to be in a domain separated instance or have yet another way to log into an instance and do their work. So in that case, we again, we have an application that we install for our service provider customers that allows turnkey onboarding and automation of processes between them and their customers, whatever platform their customers is on, so that there is no issue of logging in, and there's no issue of having separate service level agreements, having separate processes to customize. So these trends that I see come about because of how ServiceNow is architected, right? The first trend of where data is locked in and has a need to be made more available is a fact of the single tenant architecture of ServiceNow and how it was built. It was built that way for efficient deployment, for efficient automation, and rapid and bespoke type of changes to application without affecting any other customer, right? It was done that way to allow for upgrades and updates on the platform to be done independent of any other customers need to upgrade. So you can schedule upgrades separately. It was the requirement for how the platform was built. But as a result, you see technical debt starts to build up as customers make their own modification, because it's at the same time easy, but powerful. So they keep on doing that.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely, Mike. and so that's why you see the trend today of customers saying, wow, ServiceNow's applications are really better than what I've created in the past. I want to have that. I paid for it. I want to get back to that, right? So you see a lot of the movement and the trend going that way. In the same line, the locking in of data and process for a service provider required a service provider to ask their customers to come into the portal to do their work, right? In the case of a service provider that has a lot of customers, right, hundreds of them, it becomes a not as great user experience for their customers, because their customers will have to have another set of login credentials that rotates every 6 months. The customers have their own IT processes that may or may not be the same as the provider's IT process. The single system of record now is subjected to 2 systems of action, right? So there's some confusions there. So that trend has caused us to create a product and a service where we create applications for our service providers to have them, to allow them to rapidly onboard their customers. Turnkey, drop in, add the services that you need in the application, drop in and turn on, right? Low code, no code, because in terms of integration, there's always 2 points that you need to integrate, right? As long as the integration controller sits in one place or another, the other point is always going to be neglected in terms of conforming to the API or security or whatever. One of the reasons that Perspectium was created was this very hard problem of connecting things that required a neutral way of addressing 2 points at the same time, so that they can be upgraded and changed independently while maintaining the single static technology in the middle. And that's the reason for Perspectium.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. What about things like on the subject of trends? What about things like shadow IT? Mike, is that something that you're seeing? I mean, I know everyone was talking about shadow IT a few years ago. Is it still an issue? How are people addressing that?
Yeah, I think with ServiceNow's rollout of products like SAM Pro, obviously Discovery, Software Asset Manager Pro, basically for those who don't know, allows us to go out there, discover what's basically on the network for software, and basically shine a light on those who may be purchasing software without IT knowing, right? And it's not to say, hey, don't do that. We may already have licenses. We may already have a product that does this. because in the past, you have different business units that just say, hey, I'm going to swipe the credit card, buy this piece of software or buy this piece of hardware. So, things like discovery allows us to say, what is that computer doing, under someone's desk? I mean, we were talking a little bit about this before, computers being under the desk. It just, it reminded me of my background's all healthcare IT. And I just remember we'd always find some application running on some computer under some doctor's desk, randomly, right? So if utilizing things like ServiceNow Discovery obviously helps us point out things like that, and software asset management, specifically Software Asset Management Pro, really kind of cuts that shadow IT kind of right out, right? Or at least gives us the ability to know what's out there and try to put an end to it.
Yeah. David, are you seeing much in the way of shadow IT, or hearing much about shadow IT?
Only in the context that of technical debt, right? It is a problem that needs to be solved.
Yep.
And it's not the customer's fault per se, because again, easy and powerful encourages that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you build it, they will use it. So best practices, consulting companies like GlideFast that comes in and tells customers what the right way of doing something is crucial. The ecosystem, and then the ability to go towards no code or low code in solving any problem for the platform is also an important way to overcome that.
Mm-hmm. And right along those lines of technical debt, what I always like to, because I've been part of several re-implementations of ServiceNow, which speaks to how powerful and useful the platform is, right? If customers are saying, hey, listen, we've made a mistake, we over-customized, but we're not getting rid of ServiceNow. We want to actually spend the money to re-implement it, right? But I think a lot of that technical debt has come about because, back in 2010, ServiceNow did not have the features that it has today out of the box, right? So, ServiceNow comes out with, as you know, 2 new releases every year. They're constantly innovating. They're getting feedback from their customers, from their partners. What are customers having to customize? Is this a worthy investment for us to bake it directly into the platform? So I think we're going to see, specifically in the ServiceNow world, right, the technical debt is definitely going to be much lower and continue to drop, right? And of course, using the right partner, following best practices is obviously going to help with that. But yeah, I think the features that ServiceNow are just baking into the platform is a really truly allowing customers to configure versus really over customize like they had to in the past.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that. We had a recent customer meeting where we sat down with a room full of customers in London, and every single one of them said that they were moving back to out of box. Yep. Because they were all long-time ServiceNow customers who'd adopted these applications back at the very beginning when they weren't much more than templates.
Exactly.
And then now the applications have matured and they want to move back to that. And so, yeah, we've seen a lot of demand for that. How about things like Orlando? What impact has Orlando had on the ServiceNow world?
Yeah, Orlando, it's another phenomenal, release from ServiceNow. There's, specifically, there's a lot of enhancements I've seen around Software Asset Management Pro that we're really excited about. What I know we're going to talk about COVID apps in a little bit too. So, seeing some of the innovations around supporting businesses around COVID. But, again, it's every release is just, so exciting. Our team loves jumping into the release notes and reporting to the community, what new features the customers need to take advantage of. But I'm curious from your perspective, David, what you're most excited about with Orlando.
Well, the big takeaway for me in Orlando is the fact that ServiceNow is really heading towards the direction of standardization, right? You see standardized APIs, you see standardized ways of doing things, you see platform level adjustment to avoid, again, right, to reduce technical debt.
Yep.
And that is very welcome for the customer. And that's actually driving a lot of customers wanting to go to Orlando, because they want to take advantage of this standardization, this overarching standardization that's happening in that release. And it's a good thing.
Yeah. One other thing that we get asked a lot about at Perspectium is the integration hub from ServiceNow. Obviously that came out a couple of releases back, and they continually enhance that. How does that fit into the whole sort of ecosystem with Perspectium and with GlideFast? How does that sort of form part of the story?
I can take that first.
Yeah.
Well, to us, right, the integration hub is the same as I'm not downplaying it. It's got a great UI and user experience, but it's just yet another toolkit in the area of web services, right? Mm-hmm. For Perspectium, we are not interested in solving problems at that level. We are about having a consistent way to solve a customer problem. In this case, it's exporting and importing big data either in a batch mode or in a dynamic fashion, triggered fashion, with very high availability and compatibility between systems, and done as a service that we actually are responsible for keeping it running, right? So a product approach is what we're looking for. I always tell the team, for all I care, we could actually build our service on Integration Hub if we wanted to. But at the time that Perspectium was conceived, it wasn't available. So that's the biggest difference that we see in that.
Yeah. How about you, Mike? What are you seeing around Integration Hub, or just integrations in general, even?
I mean, for me, the biggest, the thing I love the most when talking about integrations with customers is, when they ask, is it possible to integrate this with ServiceNow? And my only question back to them is, what we want to integrate with, does that have an API? And when they say yes, or, when they say yes, we can. As long as it has an API, we can integrate it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Perspectium is really that pre-built integrations that allow customers to integrate that much faster, right?
Well, the fundamental is that we are responsible for keeping things working.
Yep.
So it's not the customer's responsibility to take over some code and continue to keep it updated. Perspectium is a product company that version our solution. Yep. So when we say we integrate and we have an application that allows you to automate processes between systems, we are responsible for the security of it. We are responsible for the availability and monitoring of it. So when it doesn't work, we know first and we will call you, right? And we are responsible for keeping it updated. If you have, Atlassian Jira 5.0 upgraded, we are responsible for making it work for you, rather than you understanding the API and going and updating your Spoke or your web service or whatever. Beautiful. So that is the fundamental philosophy of our company.
That's great.
Mike, you had a question there?
No, I'll hold it till later.
Okay.
I'll hold it till later.
Okay. Well, in that case, I've got one for you. Something that we've seen a fair bit of in customers that we've spoken with has been an increasing requirement for archiving. Is that something that you've been seeing much of at GlideFast?
For archiving?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it's funny, we've actually used ServiceNow to archive old data from other systems, right? Especially if we're replacing an incident management application, companies, you don't want to lose all those past incidents, right? They don't want to lose all of that old data. So, we've seen several instances where we'll build custom tables to store allow it to still be searchable, things like that, or mergers of companies where another company purchases another one and they both had ServiceNow and they don't want to lose all the old data, but they also don't want to bring that necessarily into the new system. So us hosting an environment for them to search and retrieve that old data. So that's my world, I think. I'm curious to see, David, if you're seeing different.
And I think you just answered both the archiving and migration aspect of the problem, because we do see that a lot as well. Customers moving from other platforms that are no longer relevant into a ServiceNow environment, migrating that, as well as customers wanting to archive because of increasing the performance of the platform, where old data no longer is part of the search and wanting to keep it off record, but also wanting to have the ability to pull it back anytime that they need it for audit and compliance type of a purpose. But migration to us also means going from, Aspen to Orlando, right? That is not an upgrade.
No.
It will never happen.
No.
So, and then customers going from on-prem to cloud. We still have a few of those.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. And surprisingly, there was a customer who wanted to go from cloud to on-prem and so forth. So we have customers approaching us for those purposes. Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? It wouldn't be a webinar in 2020 if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room. That guy. How is Mike? Do you want to give us your thoughts on how is COVID-19 impacting you and your customers?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we're seeing whole industries get highly affected, right? But the industries that are surviving through this are quickly realizing there's no more option. Digital transformation is no longer an option, right? It's mandatory. Mm-hmm. You physically cannot hand somebody a piece of paper anymore. It's not that it's a bad process. Swivel chair activities are no longer bad. It's just not possible. You need to get to a platform. You need to get to a repeatable process, leveraging things like workflow. We're also seeing, the business, right, turning to IT because they need to roll an application out immediately, right? Whether it's state and local organizations where they have to, provide, all this unemployment assistance, disaster recovery, emergency assistance. They don't have time to go out and look for another application. So they're turning to IT and saying, what do we have to work with? And IT saying, use ServiceNow. We've been telling you for years, you can roll out applications fast, and we can have this great experience. And we have this beautiful front end with portals. So we already have all our users, right? We already have all the information you need. And oh, by the way, you can deploy these applications in days. So we're seeing definitely an uptick in urgency around application deployment. And we're also seeing, IT leaders and CIOs and CEOs finally realizing, for those who aren't there yet, that ServiceNow is not just a ticketing system, right? It's truly a platform that should be used across the enterprise, not just in one department, not just in IT, not just in HR, a true platform for the enterprise. Mm-hmm. So that's my experience with it.
It's a great experience. David?
Yeah, and I have similar feelings. The pandemic has caused newfound urgency in digital availability. Ooh. What I mean by that is everything needs to be online. Everything needs to be available, whether or not you're physically there, right?
Yes.
So in our world, it's the availability of customers being able to work with the service providers. It's the availability of data right? Not being in one place, but having the availability be in multiple places that can be accessed very efficiently without any bottlenecks or anybody driving in and pushing a button and restarting something. It's become even more real that our integration as a service, our fully managed, always available service for connecting things in your infrastructure is the right approach that we've come around to, because our customers see that. It goes, oh, now it makes sense, because previously they could drive into the office or the data center and restart an agent or whatever, right? Right now, we actually tell them something is not available, and do you want us to restart it for you, right? So that's the kind of new normal that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and wash your hands, of course. Forget that one.
I have my mask right here.
Excellent. You know, I realize I've been taking a lot of time asking you both questions. Do you have any questions for one another?
Absolutely.
Go first.
I'll jump right in. David, how did you meet Fred?
I've known Fred. You know, this will ring true for you. I've known Fred since the service center days.
Yep.
Because I worked in Peregrine Systems as an associate product author. So it's nothing more than a glorified engineer solving problems for that company. And that's the first time I've met him. And when he broke out and started ServiceNow, I was actually the one that sought after him and go, I believe in you. I think you have something bigger than any one of us that you're thinking about doing. Take me with you. And that's how it started.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Similarly, you know, what are your encounters with the founders and Fred of ServiceNow?
Fred, I only met him once. I chased him down in the lobby of Mandalay Bay at Knowledge 2018, and what was interesting is I saw a film crew around him, and I got Fred, I got to get a selfie with you, you know, and they were actually filming the Forbes video. So when the Forbes video came out, I was like, am I going to be in this video? Because they were like right on us. Right. But I did get to ask Fred the GlideFast question. I said, Fred, we did GlideFast for you. We named it after you. You know, do you love the name? Do you hate it? He goes, I love it. And you know, I gotta, next time I see him, I'm gonna ask him what he meant by this, because he said, I love it for several or multiple different reasons. And I was like, and I never got to ask him what he meant by that. So I don't know what he meant by that. But Fred, if you're watching, get in my DMs, shoot me a message. I want to hear what you meant by that.
Yeah, I want to go out on a limb and say he probably loved it for 4 reasons.
Okay. Oh, wow.
It was the 4 people that he had in that room when we started a company called GlideFast.
Wow.
That corner office. And
GlideSoft.
GlideSoft was what we're going to do. We're going to be an application platform company.
Yep.
Yeah. But in terms of chasing Fred down in Knowledge 18, I was doing that too, but it seems like you were more successful than I was.
I got lucky. David, what do you look for in a partner like GlideFast? Like, what's the ideal ServiceNow partner?
So we are a product company at heart, right? So that's what we are good at doing. We're good at addressing the user experience, addressing the usability of the product in solving the customer's problem. But a partner is very valuable for us in terms of completing that step, right? Working with the customer to bring a bigger solution, because we do have those, right? We've narrowed down our product management to target these areas that we feel are very important for our customers, but we do have room where customers come in and go, wow, but I want to do this. You know, I see what you intended to do here, but I really have that other problem that, you know, that I can see your product works, but it's not quite there yet. So a partner is very valuable in taking that last mile with us, just because we're so focused in creating that specific standard user experience for our customers.
Yep.
And, you know, our customers' imagination at this point is much bigger than ours. So that's where I see the value.
Awesome.
Yeah, that inspiration that I think we all get from our customers, and quite frankly, that, you know, that we used to get at ServiceNow from our customers. That inspiration that you get from them is incredible. It provides direction and passion.
It used to be ServiceNow. I remember Columbia University in New York asked me to create a loaner program for them to check in and check out books and laptops.
Yep.
I was like,
built that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a couple times.
Yeah. So, but as a result, right, the platform got better because we didn't have that UI component that allowed you to right click and drill in and all that. So we built those kinds of widgets in order to, again, you know, present a better user experience for our customers. So in that sense, you know, partners are also valuable to us when engaged with our customers to come back and say, hey, there's this other thing that our customers looking for. Why don't you put it back into your product, you know?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're actually getting close to the end of our time together today. Before we go, do either of you have any sort of like parting words or words of wisdom? How would you sum everything up if I asked you to do that? Michael, do you want to go first?
You know, I just for, you know, we're in crazy times right now, so I think it's important more than ever that we're focused on our health and in our jobs, right? You know, our local economies, right? Supporting local businesses are very important. And just overall being aware, being kind to others, right? This is a very difficult time for people. We are all fortunate. We're in this space. Both of our companies, David, were digitally transformed already, right? This COVID, you know, pandemic did not affect our business operations one bit as far as our ability to deliver our services. And I assume the same for your organization. So we're very fortunate, but it's very important for us to make sure we're paying it forward. We're helping our neighbors in our communities. So that's really how I'd like to wrap that my side of it up.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that and go, you know, a wise man once told me, do the right thing, and then everything else will work out.
Absolutely.
Right? Don't get wrapped up with news and, you know, distractions and things that don't really matter that much, right?
Absolutely.
Keep your heart true, do the right thing, and serendipity will happen. Yep. And hopefully you'll take advantage of that and go one step further, and achieve what you set out to do in ServiceNow or other places. Anywhere. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Stay safe, everyone.
Yeah.
Great way to think about it, and a great way to sort of end today's session. So we have kind of come to the end of our time today. Before we go, though, I do want to shamelessly promote our next webinar and GlideFast's next webinar as well. The next webinar you'll hear from Perspectium will be with Kerry Blunt, who runs the service management group at Fujitsu. And he is going to be talking about how they've implemented Perspectium within Fujitsu to deliver all of the things that you see on the screen. I won't read them out to you, but they're connecting with their customers, they're connecting with their suppliers, and you'll hear about that in the webinar, which is next Wednesday, so just a week from today.
I just want to add, very innovative customer. They've actually built a program around our product, and it's repeating in a turnkey way to their customers.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can register for that on our website. Please go there and do that. And Mike, you've got another webinar coming up at GlideFast too, right?
Yes, we do. For a common service data model coming up on our on-air series. So we've had several webinars starting early May, and we're going through June and hopefully through July. But for CSDM, this is a great opportunity to learn how to build a framework for your CMDB. And so it's going to be really exciting. ServiceNow is going to be joining us as well. Mark Bowden's a legend over there for CSDM. So we're really excited.
Excellent. And I see, and people can register for that at the links on the bottom of the page there. So please, I'd encourage you to do that as well. Excellent. Well, it seems that this hour flew past really quickly. I think we could do several of these.
I love it.
But unfortunately, we have kind of come to the end of our time. Thank you for joining us. I trust you found this webinar informative and you were able to pick out a few fresh ideas that you can incorporate into your ServiceNow environment. And of course, a huge thank you to Mike Lombardo from GlideFast and David Loo from Perspectium for sharing their stories, insight, and experience with us today. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, the webinar has been recorded and we'll get a copy of it out to you in the next day or two. And in the meantime, if you'd like to read some customer stories or learn more about Perspectium or GlideFast, please visit our respective websites at perspectium.com and glidefast.com. And we look forward to working with you. Thanks again for joining us today. Goodbye.